My greedy husband and toxic mother-in-law drained my life savings while I was in a coma and forged documents to sell my ancestral estate. I woke up, faked severe amnesia, and gathered enough evidence to have them arrested in open court. I met my husband, Mark, when we were both in our mid-20s. He seemed like a charming, supportive partner, but his mother, Helen, was a completely different story. Helen was obsessed with wealth and status, and she constantly belittled me because I preferred a quiet, modest lifestyle. What Helen and Mark deeply resented was that I held the sole deed to a breathtaking, multi-million-dollar ancestral estate in upstate New York, passed down through 4 generations of my family. I refused to sell it, and I refused to put Mark's name on the deed, which infuriated them both. 3 years into our marriage, I was involved in a devastating accident and placed in a medically induced coma for 4 weeks. For 4 agonizing weeks, I was kept in a medically induced coma on life support. The doctors explicitly told my husband that my chances of survival were incredibly slim, and even if I woke up, I would likely suffer from permanent, severe cognitive brain damage. Mark and Helen did not grieve. They saw my tragedy as the ultimate financial opportunity. Assuming I was either going to die or wake up completely incapacitated, they immediately sprang into action. Helen hired a corrupt, heavily compromised family lawyer. Together, they forged my signature on a comprehensive durable power of attorney and a medical conservatorship document. Using these fraudulent papers, Mark systematically drained over $400,000 from my private premarital investment accounts. Worse, they quickly signed a lucrative contract with a massive commercial real estate developer to bulldoze my ancestral estate and turn it into a luxury golf course. But a month later, a medical miracle happened. The swelling in my brain completely subsided, and I woke up. I was physically weak, but my mind was completely, sharply intact. On my 3rd day awake, a sympathetic overnight nurse recognized Mark and Helen visiting my room. The nurse quietly warned me that she had overheard them arguing in the hallway about routing real estate deposit funds to an offshore account before I was discharged. My blood ran completely cold. I waited until I was alone, borrowed a tablet from the nursing staff, and accessed my financial portals. Everything was gone. My accounts were drained, and there was a pending real estate transfer for my family home. The sheer, suffocating betrayal nearly stopped my fragile heart. The man who vowed to protect me had completely robbed me while I was fighting for my life on a ventilator. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I meticulously planned my revenge. When Mark and Helen returned to the hospital, I put on the performance of a lifetime. I stared blankly at the wall. I slurred my words, pretended I didn't recognize them, and feigned severe amnesia. The doctors were baffled, but Mark and Helen were absolutely thrilled. They thought they had officially gotten away with it. They confidently proceeded with their plan to finalize the real estate sale, which required a formal judge to approve Mark as my permanent legal conservator due to my severe mental incompetence. I secretly contacted my own high-powered estate attorney from the hospital bed. We quietly froze the real estate transaction under a federal fraud hold and gathered every single piece of forged documentation, IP address logs from the bank transfers, and security footage of Helen meeting the corrupt notary. 2 months later, the final conservatorship hearing took place. Mark and Helen stood confidently before the judge, putting on a sickening display of fake tears, claiming they just wanted to liquidate my assets to afford my lifelong dementia care. They submitted the forged power of attorney to the court. That is when the heavy courtroom doors swung open. I did not roll in on a wheelchair. I walked down the center aisle of the courtroom wearing a sharp-tailored suit, looking completely healthy, utterly lucid, and perfectly composed. My lawyer walked right beside me holding a massive briefcase of evidence. Mark's jaw physically dropped. Helen let out a high-pitched gasp and grabbed the edge of the defendant's table to keep from collapsing. I walked directly to the witness stand and spoke with perfect articulate clarity. I presented the court with my official neurological clearance from the chief of medicine, proving I had 0 brain damage. Then my lawyer handed the judge the massive binder of evidence. It contained the undeniable proof of their forged signatures, the illegal offshore wire transfers, and the corrupt real estate contract they signed while I was on life support. The judge's face turned bright red with absolute fury. He slammed his gavel down and immediately held Mark and Helen in contempt of court for committing perjury and submitting forged legal documents to a federal judge. Because they had stolen over $400,000 and attempted to illegally sell a multi-million-dollar estate, the judge ordered the bailiffs to arrest them right there in the courtroom. Mark tried to run, but he was tackled by a court officer. Helen collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The developer immediately backed out of the sale when the fraud was exposed. I divorced Mark, fully recovered my stolen funds, and kept my beautiful ancestral home. Mark and his mother are currently serving 10 years in a federal penitentiary for grand-scale wire fraud, while I am living my absolute best life.